First up, ina mana, ina waka, ina reo. Ira o rangatirama, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora, everyone. It's wonderful to have you here. It's an absolute blast. And what I said for those of you that aren't from New Zealand and not familiar with reo, Te Ao Māori, is all peoples of the world, all speakers, all the chiefly peoples here, and all the groups that are here. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. Greetings to all of you that are gathered. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here. And so kia ora. And we're here because of innovators. And we're here as part of the regional Fireside Chat. The Fireside Chat is part of a program that has been running for 10 weeks. It's by innovators, funnily enough, and it's called Connect Unconference. And we're blessed to have Kate McIver here, who's joined us from Denver, Colorado, where it's almost 10 o'clock at night. So, Kate, I'd like to acknowledge innovators and you guys for everything that you've done. 10-week program of global innovators sharing their insights, knowledge, and know-how. And it's been an absolute blast. I can't tell you how much good stuff has come from it. And no pressure for today for the panelists. So kia ora to you and thank you so much. I think, Kate, you're going to shoot away. But I'd just like to offer up a little bit of a saying. So, kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa, punamu te moana, kia teri te karo hirohi. And what that means in Māori, and forgive me for those that are fluent, I'm not, I'm on a journey, but it effectively says, look, may the calm be widespread. So you've all come from all different backgrounds and, you know, you've got lots going on in your life. And we'd like to acknowledge that. We'd like to actually acknowledge, hopefully, that you just come here calm. The other part of that is that it talks about poanamu, shining on the water. And each and every one of you has something unique and special in you and that you have a destiny to bring a part of. And today we're going to hear some folks that have got some unique backgrounds. And hopefully by the time you leave this korero, this talk and this fireside chat, that actually you feel like your piece of poanamu is better off and that you can shine the light for others. Well, that's the other part of the saying. So welcome. This is the second part of our Down Under connection, and it connects you with 4 Māori entrepreneurs and innovators and connectors from Aotearoa, New Zealand. And we're here today to discuss and explore the role innovation has in delivering intergenerational impact, productivity and wellness, but to do that with a beautiful Māori perspective and a Māori lens. Why? Because we think there's something unique and special in the ancestral knowledge and insight that has been before and is present now, and it should be more and more as we face more global phenomenon and challenges, more and more embraced as we go through Indigenous thinking. We are here to really embrace this saying, which is something that Cliff Curtis talked about. You know, we have a collective responsibility to our land and to our future generations. And that comes from a word in Māori that we call kaitiakitanga. And so he's a famous actor and producer, but he's also a New Zealander from Ngāti Hauiti and Te Aroha background. So we're going to hear a little bit of insight into what does kaitiakitanga mean in the context of innovation, etc. The format, I can guarantee this is probably the most structured this thing's going to be because this will go all over the place, I guarantee it, in good places. So the format is 2 rounds of questions posed by a moderator. That is myself and my co-moderator, Madhu Chandra. So Madhu joins me from the global head of Datacom Foundry at Datacom. Madhu, welcome. Would you like to say g'day to everyone?
Yeah, kia ora everybody. And firstly, I think thanks so much to the panelists and a special thanks to Teresa for bringing us all together. And I'm super excited for us to tell our unique New Zealand story, or Aotearoa story. And learning a lot. I'm here to learn as much as you. And I think one of the big things as we all caught up was we really want to make this a conversation. So keep your questions flowing through. here on Zoom, and we'll try and get through as many of them as possible between myself and Katie. So back to you, Katie.
Awesome, thanks, man. And what I realised I've not done is actually introduce myself. So tako ingoa, Kerry Top tako ingoa, so that means my name's Kerry Top. I'm from the Kerry Top Collective, and we help courageous leaders innovate for intergenerational value, impact, and relevance. Bit of a mouthful. So wonderful to have you here, Madhu. So going back to it, 2 questions posed by the moderators. If you have any questions, as Madhu said, please put them in the chat in the area for Q&A. And it looks like there's some stuff coming through, which is great. Final round. If we don't get to all of the questions through it, we'll try and collate them up, and we'll ask them as we go, and then wrap up and close at 5 o'clock, hopefully on the dot. Now, just in terms of a note, we will be recording this, both in terms of video, as I said up front, but also we're blessed to have Brian Nemo, who we realise is actually a familial connection between Aroha and him. So Brian will be actually recording this and allowing us to give you a koha, a gift at the end of it, which will be some insights from this session that you can graphically share on social media. So who are we going to hear from today? So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Nikora Ngaropo, and he's the CEO and founder of his own business, Nikora Ngaropo Motion and Design, in amongst a whole lot of other things. So I'd like to throw over to Nikora and just do a bit of an introduction, who you are, and also one thing that you're excited about from this session today.
Okay, kia ora tātou, ko ai ahau, who am I? Ko Nikora Ngaropo ahau he uri ahau no te raroa tūhoi Ngāti Pou me Ngāti Kahunga. So kia ora, my name is Nikora Ngaropo. I hail from quite a few different tribes around New Zealand. Te raroa in the far north, Ngāti Pou down on the east coast, Tūhoi, the Bay of Plenty, and then Ngāti Kahunga as well. So kia ora everyone. I have a business called NNMD, which is Nikora Ngaropo Motion Design. NNMD sounds better. It's a little bit condensed. And it sounds more like PwC or something, a little bit more corporate, so I went down that way.
Yeah.
Right. I'm really excited, actually, just to be catching up with a few of my friends on here who I haven't had the opportunity to speak with in a little while, 2 of whom travelled with me to Ireland to check out the Irish tech sector over there. So I'm looking forward to catching up.
Yeah, kia ora, man. Great to have you on, Nikora. So next up we have Aroha Armstrong, who's the Group Manager for Māori Economy at Callaghan Innovation. And Callaghan has such rich history in New Zealand, and lovely to see the embracing of the Māori economy. So Aroha, welcome.
Kia ora, Kerry. Kia ora tātou, no ngā hau e whā. Ko aiau, ko te arawa te waka, ko te arawa te iwi, ko ngongo taha te maunga, ko te rotorua nui, kahumata momo i te moana. Ko Aroha Armstrong, ahau. Kia ora, everyone. I just told you that my gene pool is centred all around the centre of my universe, which is the centre of the North Island in Rotorua. So I am the group manager of Callaghan Innovation, but more importantly, I'm a mother of like 6 kids. 4 are mine and 2 and they've got two extras that we live with too. I'm married to a beautiful man down in Te Whānau Apanui, and as I look out the window and here in Auckland, I look out at Rangitoto, which was named by my ancestor as he passed on through Auckland and carried on down to discover other parts of New Zealand. And what I'm excited about today is, again, to hang out with some beautiful friends who maybe in other parts of the world we would be seen as competitors, but we love each other and we have a common purpose that we share together. And I'm looking forward to maybe sharing some little nuggets of information with the global community, if there is any that we can offer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aroha. And earlier on when we were talking about the fact that you had to orientate your screen because you're a bit worried about your husband. maybe showing the world what was going on.
True story.
True story. It was, yeah. So, look, thank you very much, and wonderful to have you on. Next up, this is a man that I've had the pleasure of doing a lot of work with, a lot of mahi, Barry Soutar, Executive Director, and I always have a bit of a challenge with this in terms of saying it, so I'm going to say it quickly, and don't hold it against me because I'm still on my journey. Te tera toi whakanau. Hopefully I got that right and didn't offend anyone. So, Barry, over to you. Oh, is he there? Are you there, Baz?
The quietest I've ever heard Baz in my life.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Note to self, switch off the mute. Tēnā tātou whakarongo mai nei, Barry Soutar. I come from Ngāti Pro. That's the mountain there, Hikurangi. That's the actual river, the Waiapu, and this is Ngāti Pro.
It looks like you're pointing to you, mate.
I was.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And it's an absolute beautiful part of the world, Tairāwhiti. So, Baz, wonderful to have you online as well. Last but by no means least, this is the lady that actually pulled us all together, the driving force behind this and telling the story of Māori entrepreneurship. Teresa Pollard, Head of Northern Region at Datacom. Teresa, lovely to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself and one thing that you're hoping to see today.
Kia ora, Kiri. Kia ora tātou, everyone. Ko nā pui Ngāti Kahu ki whangaroa me Ngāti Kauwhata, ko Teresa Pollard aho. Absolute pleasure to have you all here and to join us because I know you're all busy people. Same, I'll echo and tautoko my whānau who are here. And that for us, just to be able to talk and have this kōrero is just, for us, fun. This is about what we do. We all absolutely share this kaupapa for Māori, and for us, we just love the opportunity to come together and be able to share this with everyone else. So, kia ora.
Kia ora. Lovely. Well done. Right, so that's our Firesiders, in the nicest possible way. Hopefully what we're going to see is, they've all talked about the connection that they have together, that connection and, a bit of insight, bit of fun. So when I said this was probably the most structured it's going to be, I suspect that's the way, but I guarantee that you will get nuggets around our kaupapa for this session. So in terms of first question up, I'm going to open up for Nikora, if that's okay. And
no worries.
What does innovation mean to you in a Māori context? And then the second part to that is, what are some of the good examples that you've seen of Māori innovation and how that's different?
Okay, so Māori innovation for me is taking a much longer view in terms of innovation, how that works with our people. So if you talk to Aroha, if you talk to Baz, if you talk to myself, most of us are looking at that long game. And what that means is, what does innovation look like in our communities on a day-to-day basis? What does it look like long-term, and what is the long game? So we work in intergenerational strategies that go from 10 years to 200 years. So it's a much longer play in terms of how we look at our communities, and on that, how we're introducing or how we see our people moving through technology, education, the different kind of industrial changes that are happening at the moment. As you would have seen during COVID, there's been a huge shift to remote learning, doing business online, doing business from home. So for me personally, it's around how do we look at innovation to create impact in those communities. Nice. There's quite a few examples here in Aotearoa of that kind of happening, and part of that is I'll talk from the education space. So one of the programs I was involved with was Kia Takatua Matihiko, which is the National Digital Readiness Program. So that's basically upskilling all of the teachers in new digital curriculum. It's across 44,000 teachers here in Aotearoa. And as you can imagine, with digital moving and changing, there's a lot to cover. So having connections into people like Barry, people like Aroha, people like Teresa, that's actually where we get industry involved in those conversations and really start to bridge the two. So yeah, nice. as a kickoff.
Yeah, no, great. And look, I'm going to open that up to anyone on the panel, actually. And the question still stands in terms of what does innovation mean to you in a Māori context, but maybe riffing off what you've heard from Nikora, and what are some of those good examples? So anyone like that? Otherwise, I'm just going to pick out someone.
Yeah. I'll add on. I'll start the add-on game. So one of the things, and everything that Nikora said is completely correct. And as Nikora was speaking, the words that came into my mind was innovating as a community. And that's kind of where I really feel that the innovation difference for Māori is that's the real difference, is that nothing ever happens in isolation from anyone or anything else. There's always a need to connect or find a connection and be thinking about a broader play that is in, like, for years I was a small business owner, and the way I ran my business was so criticised because I was never solely about the bottom line. I was always, profit was important, but only in the way that it enabled me to contribute to my community and bring my community on and employ the people that no one else would employ, and provide examples of Māori success where maybe there weren't any for young people. And for so long, that wasn't seen as a real business. I got told my business was a hobby for many, many years. And now that I'm working in with tech companies, the same whakaaro is there. Although we are very bottom line and profit driven because we're smart business people as Māori, it's never the only thing. There is always a desire to, there's always a shared purpose, which is bringing all of our people and our communities and our land along with the journey. It only works when we're all succeeding. So in a realm where maybe competition is at the forefront, for us it's much more about community, and I think that's kind of the fundamental difference between the way we have always innovated. And it's kind of like explaining how you breathe. I don't know how we could explain. It's hard to explain something that feels so natural. So I'll just drop that in there and let someone else dive in to add some gold nuggets.
So
I can add to that, Katie, if you like.
Yeah, because I was wondering too, and I don't know where you were going with this, but picking up on some of that intergenerational strategy stuff at a regional level, I'm thinking. So you go where you're going to take it. I'll drop that in later. Go for gold.
Yeah, sure. So I definitely want to support what others are saying. I think the interesting thing about Māori is that our shared kaupapa and purpose is not self-serving. And I think that's a key fundamental difference, right? Because whenever we're thinking about different partnerships we want to make, different commercial deals, impact deals, whatever it is we're trying to do, we're also trying to think always in a multi-lens approach. How can we actually deliver to one thing while delivering to another at the same time? That's impactful. That's going to support our people. That's going to support our young people, our rangatahi. That's going to support talent development. That's going to see generational change. That's going to benefit everyone. And I think that's a really key component. It's interesting. We talk as whānau, we're not related, but we actually are related. So each of us, even though we sit in our own individual companies, we are all in our own company as well, together in our own company whānau, and that we all represent each other's interests, even though we're sitting in our own jobs. If that makes sense. But at the same time, we're always looking for ways to support and grow each other, and to support each other's goals and objectives, even in the role that we're doing now, and that's part of the natural thing that we have to kind of support each other. So, and a key example of that is probably looking at, if I'm looking at an opportunity to create a commercial partnership for Datacom, I'm also looking at an opportunity that's going to drive impact in the community, impact in the regions, potentially an impact that's going to help Nikora, it's going to help Barry, it's going to help Aroha, right? So the way to connect us all and all the things that we do.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm picking up a few themes in here around, the longer term view, intergenerational strategy. Some people in the European world would probably call that some level of, sustainability. In a Māori context, it might be called kaitiakitanga, which we can explore in a bit more detail. That guardianship, the long term view. The systems thinking and innovating as a community is about, looking after each other, shared value and community value. Barry, I'm going to throw to you now just to answer that question around what does innovation mean to you in that Māori context, and what are some of the good examples, and maybe riffing off some of the other stuff you've heard.
Yeah, look, exactly what my esteemed colleagues have shared. It's the whole concept of how we exactly as Aroha said is we approach life through the lens, our cultural lens, and our cultural lens happens to be one that's framed around innovation, exploration, and genealogy. So if you put it in the context of Māori as a Polynesian people, I mean, 5,000 years of celestial navigation to get us across 10,000 islands from Southeast Asia to New Zealand, New Zealand being the last point in that trip, then, just by natural selection, that process means that the only people that eventually arrived here in New Zealand were the highest explorers, the highest innovators, and a fair amount of technical innovation in order to do that. So then when you take that lens and you take the cultural perspective that we are embedded with our genealogy, because we had smaller pools of population to work from, we had to be really careful about our DNA. And so, you had to, you invested heavily in knowing who you're related to, who you don't want to be incestuously replicating with, and also, where there was good breeding lines, how do you actually leverage that? So
it's still true, Des.
So genealogy becomes really, really powerful sort of indicator. So what it means is that when you look at things through that lens, then you're always looking at a sense of family. Sense of family, and about what obligations you owe to each other and that they owe to you. And it means that when we go and have a look at a proposition, we're assessing it up against a matrix that's invisible to everybody else, but it better damn will tick a whole lot of boxes for us as Māori. And we do this intuitively. We look at it from the way we feel, and that's because we were, we've been raised in a real crowd sense. So if you're a marae person like Aro's was and myself, then what it means is that your radar for people and for personality and for working out in a flash who's ripping you off and who's going to be highly reliable, trustworthy, and collaborative. You got a different radar, and I certainly remember as I was growing up how that was challenging for some people when I just take one look at them and switch off. And it's because, I was just using all of that human power that was trained into me and amongst my people. And, they would say to me, hey, watch out for that fellow over there, or watch out for that lady. And they, and you would learn by osmosis how to sense these things in people. So that means that we would frame things as quite different. And then, because I'm sucking up all the oxygen, I'm going to switch off. But I'll give you an example of the innovation next.
Okay, cool. That'd be great. Look, what I heard in there is the importance of trust and mana and the connection that you have with people. And so longer term view, innovating as a community, shared value is really important, and the importance of trust and mana to maintain the operating fibre that brings us together. We're going to hand now to Medu, who's going to... Medu, how are we going for questions in the Q&A? Folks, please get your questions in. If you've got any along the way, we'd love to get those. Medu, how are we looking? Have you got a question? Oh, hello, Medu? You're there? You're
I'll just poke in a little nugget while we're waiting for Medu to not mute.
Poking a little nugget at your pleasure.
I'll poke in a nugget of an example of some quite old innovation, if you like. When I was a kid, my nan and koro used to be at all the land meetings and all the tribal meetings and all of that. And I was always, made there to sit quiet and all of that. And I always noticed there was an empty chair. And I remember asking my nan, why that chair always empty? Is someone not turning up? And in her way of explaining it, she said, oh, well, when we're making decisions, that chair is for the next generation. So whenever a decision is being made, that chair is there to remind us of what will the future generation think of this decision. And it wasn't that they were there or that anyone was speaking. It was just a physical reminder of the person who was going to fill that seat after these leaders left it. And that's a real cool example of how to innovate intergenerational thinking. If you want to poke that into your board meetings, everybody.
Oh, I love that. What a great takeaway. Beautiful.
Kerry,
yes.
we've got a question here from Andrea, and everyone wants to kind of build on this, so I don't know who would like to tackle this first from our Fireside panel. But basically it says, from Barry's comment on using feelings, how can we create more of a culture of using feelings in an environment that hasn't historically been comfortable with this? Barry, would you like to go first?
I'm called Mr. No Empathy, so I'm probably the last person to speak to that.
Yes,
look, the irony is that can you train that stuff? I look at, I think I developed it from out of experience and in terms of, look, the hardest audience you could ever imagine doing a pitch to is on a marae to 100 of your own family. They're the toughest damn audience to pitch any damn idea to. So, as a training ground, I can remember years ago going through a whole lot of professional training. I spent 30 years in corporate globally. And, they'd put me through pitch training, all that sort of stuff. The irony was they said, gee, you were already trained before you arrived. What professional training did you go through? And I couldn't figure out what the hell I was talking about until I realized that when you have to take off nearly all your clothes and stand in front of a crowd of 5,000 and just use your body to present a haka, and capture people's attention and win their approval, that is the classic school of training. And so, there's so much you learn through, those kind of unique kind of cultural opportunities and that sort of thing. So I certainly think...
I so want to jump in right now and say, please don't go and enter your board meetings in your undies, guys.
There's another gold nugget.
Yeah. So, but
maybe that'd be good.
Look, it's not just about us being Māori. I mean, I can remember doing business in Italy, and we were under pressure to get some deals done really quickly, and the business partner I was with asked me to come to a whole series of meetings in city of Florence, and for the first 2 days we were getting nowhere. And she kept asking me, hey, what's going on? And, I wasn't exactly 100% culturally au fait at that time. On the third day, the people, and we just had copious wine, copious pasta, copious conversations in the families. On the third day, they then opened up and started gently starting to talk about business. And what we didn't realise was we weren't doing the appropriate cultural thing. We were not honouring the family by keeping our mouths shut and actually just talking as people to people about family. And that was the Italian cultural context. It's we have that similarity here in Māori as well. But what it taught me was people are people and culture is culture. And unless you actually understand that about the person across the table, then you're not going to make a lot of progress. Even as commercially astute as we all are in today's world, you do have to actually look at people.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, Barry, in terms of a cultural lens, it is relationship before business, always.
Totally.
So, yeah. So when we are dealing with people, obviously we've got our cultural lens on, but it's also about the way things are done. So the innovation is actually in the how to get to the outcome. So it's doing things in terms of our own value systems to make sure that the way we're engaging is, we call it being, tika, which is doing things the right way. And in terms of forming relationships that have depth, that aren't superficial, looking at that kind of long-term, if we're going to be in business together, doing deals for a long time, we need to start out with the right foundations. And so in terms of that emotional space and really sharing culture, part of our culture as Māori is sharing kai, so breaking bread together, having those meals, learning about the people we're doing business, their families, where they come from, the things that drive them, because those inevitably are what's directing their side of the business equation, and and where their innovation comes from.
Mm-hmm. So there's something really cool about that whole thing too. And in a world where everything's KPI driven, bottom line driven, fast, sprint, scrum, it doesn't work when you're building trust and you're in it for the long haul and you're trying to find your shared common purpose that holds you in through the tough times. And that's the difficulty, is if the world doesn't pick up that it's like catch up world. I feel like the world's beginning to catch up. For a long time we've been criticised that we don't, that maybe we take too long, maybe we seem too relaxed, maybe we do things on a handshake or when we build trust. But that's kind of what needs to happen. If we build that trust and we define that long-term goal that we will keep us making the right decisions for each other in a partnership, that's kind of the lens that I think is exciting about the new world, is that if we move away from being driven by profits to shareholders and start thinking more like, what is the well-being of our shareholders that is not related necessarily to paying them money, it starts changing your conversations and the way you take time to think and do business together. My mind goes to how New Zealand has, how Māori have actually pulled in, how we have personified our maunga and our awa, so mountains, rivers. They've always been kind of personified in our realm, but they're legally recognised as an identity, as a person in this country now, so that they are taken into account and dealt with in a different way by our legal system now. And that's another way that this country has shown a unique way of doing things as a country that's good for our country and for future generations. And I'm going to shut up. I talk way too much. Sorry, guys.
I wanted to go to
Gil, you wanted to come in? And you had a question?
Thanks, Guido. I loved, there was a question about emotions and talking about feelings, and one of the things I'm really passionate about at the moment is a thing called emotional culture. So we tend to talk about values and culture, but we don't talk about emotions, and how can we talk about feelings, whether it's our stakeholders, whether it's our family, our employees. How do we want people to feel? How do we not want them to feel? What does it mean? And how can we take baby steps and run small experiments to get there? So put an innovative mindset towards that. So I was actually going to post, if anybody has an experiment that they would, that they would like me to volunteer my time for, that we can see we can really work on bringing this, because we like to say that every organization, every family, every community has an emotional culture, even if it's one of suppression. So how can we quite easily, and that's just one of the things that I'm working on, how can we really easily, safely have conversations, maybe around some kai, about how to start building an emotional culture. So I just got quite excited when I saw that question, because there are ways we can talk about feelings and bring that to life.
Right.
Thank you. Kiri, I'll just jump in and respond to Gil there. That so when two humans come together even in a business transaction, that's the way we approach it as Māori. Is it's really what we're trying to do quickly in the what we call the ritual of encounter, is establish trust. And trust is always, just like any relationship, like for instance a marriage, is really about determining the values of the person on the other side. If their values are not aligned to ours, then we ain't doing no business, because there's no sustainability, there's no long-term opportunity, and you certainly don't want to be doing something that's going to harm people planet or profit. And so the way we do that through the Ritual of Encounter is by sharing our stories. So when I kicked off and I said, there's my mountain over there, my river, and me as the descendant of a tribe, I'm giving, for those in the Māori world, a very fast, easy, clear picture that they're going to build. They already know what the tribal character is. So, for instance, where I come from, it's very isolated, as you can see in the background there, but it's got a rugged beauty about it, and the people who come from here have had to rely for 800 years on their own resources, so they had to be highly innovative and that sort of thing. So, just by saying who I am, where I come from, I've already established that I'm most likely at a high proportion going to reflect that tribal culture, particularly if I'm deeply embedded in my tribe. And you can hear that by my accent and that sort of thing when I speak in my native language. So it's storytelling might sound like it takes a bit of time and that sort of thing. I'm telling you, storytelling is everything in Māori, and the way you do that is our history actually allows us to bring a whole lot of rich stories about our ancestors that then converges into us and then explains who we are, and that's the ability to be able to share that. So just by me sitting here and Adels tells, she states that she's from Te Aroha, straight away I have 46 pages of understanding of how she's going to likely act, why I can respect that, why she looks the way she is because she's from that tribe. They're famous for being beautiful, and so it's the cultural framework actually helps mitigate a whole lot of risks.
Something's going through my head around the importance, that Māori culture and imbued into New Zealand. New Zealand's got one of the highest rates of trust in the world in terms of doing business with. And I wonder, given both our small population and our interconnectedness, just how much that plays through. I just want to go and drill into, I guess, some of the things that I'm pulling out in the context of the conversation. I think what's coming through for me is innovation from a Māori lens and associated with intergenerational value and well-being and productivity really goes down to really starting relationships before business, the importance of trust. And then on the basis of that, the shared kaupapa that you share and the values that you share. And so I think that's, Teresa, I'm going to throw to you based on, corporate environment and how you're seeing Datacom shape up around some of those relationships. I'm thinking mana enhancing agreements. I'm thinking using whakawhanaunitanga and some of the approaches and stuff like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
And maybe with that, Teresa, I guess that'll probably capture Georgia's question.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Kia ora, Georgia, and thank you for your question. If see in the chat, George is asking a question about how do we encourage businesses to shift towards a longer term view and invest in building relationships like this. What I found is quite interesting is that now is a better time than ever to be investing in relationships like this, because in a post-pandemic world, I do feel very passionately about the fact that our people, when I think about our staff and I think about our communities, are very much want to be connected more to each other around central purpose, right, whatever that may be. So it's very important. I use my voice in that way to talk to our leadership about when we're making decisions about certain things that affect our business outcomes or our cultural outcomes, how it's very, very important to think in a multi-lens way. Right, because that's going to set us up for longevity and long-term sustainable relationships that are going to drive financial growth through our company, but also cultural growth as well, right? And the two are they're equal, right? There's no one all over the other. The two are absolutely equal. So it's as I say, I'd encourage you to think about that in your own businesses or in the roles that you are in at the moment, to talk to your leaders about what it means to make decisions that affect people, culture, as well as financial, and how can you find ways to deliver to all of those things when you make these decisions. I do also, I've been doing some research of late over the last 3 or 4 months, and there's quite a lot of research that talks to the fact that, in the past there was a lot of, lip service to greenwashing and, cultural washing of multitude of different things, where people, would put up different instances saying, we believe in this, that, and the other thing, but they didn't actually have any follow through. That stuff's not going to fly in a post-pandemic world. So it's very, very important going forward, and I'm a big advocate for this at Datacom, that you have to have a very clear identity about who you are, what your values are, your purpose, and how you're going to drive initiatives that are going to follow through those things. And it's very important in a corporate business as well to make sure that you have your people behind those things, because for us, our financial growth in Datacom is based on building relationships with customers at a very strategic level. And when you move up the chain in terms of different business transactions that you're going to make that are in the millions, all of these things matter, right? Just as much as the bottom line or what's, what are the numbers in the deal. Also, what's very, very important at the leadership table in terms of decision making is what are you doing as a company to drive impact in your communities, to drive change, to drive sustainability, environmental impact, social impact, Indigenous impact, diversity-based impact. All of those things are absolutely important, are very much looked at in an enterprise sector. So, and we're absolutely doing that at Datacom, which I'm very proud of.
There's a really cool part to add to that in terms of how I answered it in one of the chats, but how we structure meetings depends on, it's funny, when I bring non-Māori into a Māori meeting, they're quite confused because we spend the whole if it's an hour-long meeting or a half-hour meeting, most of it is us chatting. Oh, how are your kids? How's the sport coming? We spend lots of time building. If we don't know each other, we're trying to figure out what school we went to, who we're related to. We find that connection, and then the business happens quick, smart. There's no, it's like a built-in ritual of connecting first, business comes secondary, but the business happens faster and is more efficient as a result. And then there's this other thing, and it's kind of like magic happens on the bus. So when you get like-minded, like values of people together, and you're just sharing because you've got this great trust, you're really aware of your aspirations and shared vision, sometimes innovation happens really organically, and opportunities to create or innovate or do something different together just fall out of quite unstructured conversations. And an example of that was, we did a food and beverage delegation. Actually, Te Tiro Toi Whakangao is a perfect example of that, how we had tech Māori companies. Nikora was there, Barry was there. We all took tech companies to a different place and to see how other people were doing it, and we just connected on the bus. And before you know it, before the 10-day trip has ended, there's a place in Gisborne where it has been planned out. There's a building, there's a project manager, there's a tech incubator happening, there's a rangatahi program being planned. None of that was supposed to happen, but it's happening as a result of that type of organic connection. So, yeah, that's another.
Right, nice example. Medu, questions?
Yeah, we've got another one. So this is from Sarah. Would you actually like to come online and ask your question? Sarah, I can quickly read it out if that makes sense.
No, I can read that out. I can explain what I'm saying. So we have a lot of our whānau come through, and they come from these places that we're talking about naturally. I worked in this space in the mainstream before coming into the Māori space, and people would come to me and say, I want to make $1 million, and I think I found a way to do that. But in the Māori space, you have people come to say, I want to make this impact, and I think I've found a way to do that. And then just trying to figure out how to make money so that it's sustainable is kind of the secondary thing that generally comes up. So that's just the natural flip that happens in the space that we work in. But what we find is that we foster those natural kind of tendencies within our centre, but once they go out into the mainstream, they can face quite a massive contrast in terms of how welcomed that is, how appreciated that is, or valued. And so suddenly the things that they think are the things that are their strengths are not viewed in that light. And so we're just looking for any tips you guys might have as to how we can assist them in continuing to view those things in that light of it being a strength when they get hit with those I guess those criticisms out in the mainstream.
Who'd like to take that one on? Thank you, Sarah. Nikora,
I'll jump in.
Give that a go, mate.
Yeah. So I think the first thing, in that particular situation, knowing your business inside and out so that you can talk to any part of it is always going to be one of those things that should be at the top of your list. In terms of our cultural lens in doing business, those have to be balanced as well. So your relationship and your rapport building is matched against your ability to intellectualize and engage whoever is on the opposite side of the table. So like for the way that we do business, we're still always based in a foundation of relationship first, but we make sure that in terms of that elevator pitch, knowing our business, knowing what that high level summary is, or those high key points, so that we can get it across the table really quickly and get that out of the way if we need to. That also acts as a path for them to then engage on, can you tell me more about this? So, I've seen a lot of the people who have come through Kokiri, and they're amazing. You've got some great companies in there. I think the big thing is they know their stuff. They intrinsically know their stuff. It's that the age-old kind of story of making sure that you're really comfortable, that you can kind of sit at ease with it and take your time talking to somebody else through those high points so that you can create that relationship and that engagement when you're talking about your business.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Nikora. And coming from an enabler, right? So Callaghan Innovation, our job is to, and my team, is to help navigate Māori companies through a system that isn't designed for them. And it's fragmented for everybody. But when you are a Māori business that has different drivers, we really fall through the gaps. And in my mind, when you said it, I was like, he wero tēnā. It's the challenge and the opportunity for government and enablers and private sector to meet us in the middle, because we actually have something to offer the world. That this way of thinking is, the time is now to really embrace that and figure out different ways to do business that aren't going to just destroy our planet and destroy our people and create inequity everywhere, right? So these small businesses have got something that the world needs, and it's our job to figure out. And I'm part of this group here. Why I love this group is that we are all in different parts of the ecosystem, and we naturally feed each other and pass things around and navigate for businesses that don't fit the mold. And my job and other people's jobs is to try and fight the system. It's quite a big fight all of the time to try and break the current ways of doing things that don't serve Māori. And actually, they don't serve bloody anybody. If we can serve Māori, everyone wins. The service is better for everyone. Wouldn't it be amazing if any business could come to any person in an enabling role and say, this is who I am, this is what I want to, these are my aspirations and these are my barriers, and know that anyone you go to is going to help navigate you through that system. That would be amazing if we could do that. I think there's pods of us that do that, but that's because we do it on top of what we already have, what we are contracted to do. So Māori in these organisations also have to, we're shifting the way we do business. We're adding value everywhere, but it's almost like the world hasn't quite figured out what it is. And it would be nice if we could, if our leaders could embrace that and maybe lose some of that expert mindset and go, maybe we don't know as much about this as these people, and how can we get better together? That would be like mega. Yeah.
Kiri, I think you're absolutely right though. I like that emotional connection, like the emotion side of things, having those supports around, like it's so important. You've got to match your value set to the business set, to your community pillars, and how all those things kind of come together. Like, all of us, none of us have done this by ourselves. We carry a whole lot of people with us when we're doing these things, so we're never kind of alone in that space. But it's something to really bear in mind when you're looking through this lens, is that you're not just doing this for yourself. You're carrying a whole lot of people with you, and they are urging you to succeed.
Nice.
I think the thing about that too is the importance. I think about tips and tricks is about networks, right? So I mean, I met Baz and Aros when I was in the Māori economy team at NZTE before I came to Datacom. So I'm familiar with your what you want to do with your mahi, Sarah, because that's what Baz and I were doing and what Aro does now before we moved into our other roles. I think the importance and some of the tips is about we help each other. We use each other in our network to remove the barriers and move through. That's how we do it. There's no way we can do that by ourselves. We'll find a way by hook or by crook to find someone, and we use each other to say, hey, I need someone who knows this, or I need someone who knows that, because I've got this barrier, I've got this, and that's how we actually help each other to actually move through. And I think the importance when Nikora talks about knowing your business, it's really important as well, because when you know your business from a financial perspective and a cultural perspective, if you work with a company and the alignment's not there, that's okay. Move on. Don't try and, if it's not going to work and the alignment is not there, it's not there. So, that's why it's important to recognize those things and move on, because you will find the next company who will align to those things. And that when it does align, you will actually deliver great outcomes, because if it doesn't align, that's usually when, you get things that don't work out, and things don't quite work out where they need to be. So I'm a true believer in that not everyone's going to believe from straight away. So find your network, find your key people, trust your instincts, and really rely on each other to support you.
Yeah, right. Just following on from that too, T, it's also recognise what your strengths are in your business. Not everybody's a front person, So if you're not the person to sell your business, find the person that can sell your vision for you, because you need somebody that can tell your story to engage the people to get behind it. If you don't have that ability to engage, it's really hard to kind of move to the next level if you can't kind of strike up a conversation or just sell or get people to buy into your vision for whatever your product is, whatever proposal you're doing or project that you're kicking off. And that's a big thing.
Kiri, picking up on all those points, the real important thing about network is even in the Māori networks, there's a challenge, and it's partly how we've been colonised in the way of our thinking. So for instance, when you look at the best Māori entrepreneurs, particularly in tech, young people will look at them and think, that they're very elite, they're unreachable, they're not going to help me. So the young people don't actually reach out to them. But if you looked at it from a cultural way, young people know that in the culture that the old people love them and the old people will always help. That's the rule. And so if you had a Māori cultural perspective, then you would know that you could knock on that door and, the potential that they would help you is actually there. I've also heard the tech entrepreneurs, for instance, in T3W talk to me, and they said, why don't these young people come and knock on my door? And I've said, well, you might need to actually be a little bit more explicit. Not everybody actually understands and that sort of thing. So it's twofold. I think it's incumbent on us. So, for instance, the four of us, we are certainly people who make sure that we're out there and about as much as we can to encourage our young people to see role models in action. So the biggest problem is actually seeing. So this new way of acting, this new way of thinking, which I laugh at because it's 5,000 years old in our culture, is merely something that is, you just need to see it to be able to understand it. And we see it when we see it in transactional moments. We see it when we're actually sitting at the elbow of a top entrepreneur. And equally the entrepreneurs themselves need to reach out and actually help our young people. And it's about actually cultural obligation. So when I was growing up, when I was, I think I was 17 years old or something like that, and I was contemplating going to university, and I remembered one uncle came to the boarding school I was at, and he said, what are you doing, boy? And I said, well, I'm going to do my bursary. And he goes, are you going to university? I made the bad mistake of hesitating a split second on the answer. And then I got a whack over the head, and he said, which university are you going to? Then I realised it wasn't a question, it was a command, and there was a massive cultural obligation behind that to fulfil that. In other words, the aspiration, because I was the only guy in the room who was going to go to university or had the capacity to go to university in the room I was sitting in, everybody was looking at me saying, you are the one. You are going. It ain't a question, and you're going to get the bash if you don't.
And there's the other dimension that we often forget in a cultural context. We say culture, but there's the spiritual dimension that everyone always says people, planet, profit, culture, the 4 pillars. And that is a really unique thing that we do. I mean, it's not as unique now. We've got social impact and social enterprise that understand those values as well. But the spiritual dimension, I always remember thinking it was quite funny that I'd go to my Anglican church and we'd be begging, please see me, please help me with this. Maybe if you deem in your greatness, oh, Almighty God, can you help me with this? And our karakia are much more about, this is what I need, and I'm invoking your desire as my ancestors and our atua to help me in this thing that I have ahead of me right now. And it's a shift, it's a different way of recognizing our different dimensions and the energy around us and invoking what we need and taking the time out to connect on a spiritual or an energy level. I know it's sounding a bit woo-woo right now, but it is certainly a unique way of summoning up the tools that we need. So it was explained to me, like our ancestors are right there. There's a thin veil and they're sitting right there. They can see us, they can hear us. We might not be able to see them, but they're waiting for us to ask what we need so they can just provide that for us. And I love that picture. That's so for everyone, but we've just lost sight of that over colonisation and over time. But they're there. It's just a matter of asking for it and knowing that we can. So yeah, another little
lovely
nugget.
Kiri, just another point to Aroha, what Aroha just said there. On top of, if you think about traditional Māori oratory, all oratory starts with a prayer or an invocation, a request to the gods. And the skill of learning oratory is you have to learn a whole lot of these kind of invocations. So what they are in reality is usually a encapsulation of a culture story of one of your ancestors who actually set out in exactly that kind of a project and achieved success. So what it teaches you as a Māori is you've already experienced success. You're asking to just repeat the capability that you already have from your ancestors. So it changes the way you actually approach things. You're not approaching it from oh my golly, I don't have the capability and the capacity. It is, we actually have it. Let's re-invoke it.
Which is a great place to start in terms of abundance. It's all there, right? And so, okay, folks, look, I'm conscious of time, and so we are at 5 o'clock. I'm going to do my best to try and round up all of that. First thing for me is I'd like to acknowledge the folks from Te Ao Māori, who are top of the South in South Island in New Zealand, who were basically built up this. How can we be good ancestors? And it's a good question, and I think it was picked up beautifully by Aroha in terms of when you're making decisions, who's in that empty chair, and how can you, when you're making decisions, recognizing that you are carrying the mana of your past, present, and the future. And so how do you bring that in? That is an innovation in Māori. And as Barry says, it's not new. It's actually ancient. And actually what we're doing is bringing it into the now and into the future. Why? Because our world is burning. Our people are not in good shape. And so rounding out, I'd love to thank you all very, very much. I'm going to pick up on the closing points. The closing points for me were who's in that chair in terms of thinking about ancestors and the importance of trust, enhancing mana and the connection that you have with people, the relationship before business, so build on values, and innovation is in the how and actually how you actually unlock those values through shared common purpose or kaupapa, and keep coming back to that. Your storytelling is everything, and as you can see, there were some wonderful storytellers here. And so the key points on your elevator pitch, get clear on those, really understand your origin story so you can bring that and bring the atua, the gods, and the abundance that's around you, and find your person to sell if you're not able to do that. I'd like to close out with a karakia whakamutunga. Tu tawa mai I runga, tu tawa mai I raro, tu tawa mai I roto, tu tawa mai I wahu. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, kia te katoa, hauimi e, hui e, taiki e. And I'd like to thank you to our panelists so much, and to all of you for participating and being a part of this. Ke runga noa atu, which in Māori, if I've got that right, means onwards and upwards. We need you to take what hopefully is your painamu that's been shone on this koreo, this conversation, and actually take the lessons and insights. When you're making decisions and you're encouraging innovation and you're thinking about what we do, who's in that chair? How are you going to be a good ancestor, and how are you going to leave this world in a better place? Better people, better place, and better planet. Ka kite anō. Thank you very, very much, folks. Appreciate it.